twist or turn of events na importante. Yan. Again, crisis originated from the Greek word crisis, which means to separate or a separate incident. Ayan. It is a turning point sa isa ka event. Kana. Kung asa, it is ongoing or in progress at kanang crisis, kanang turning point na ginaingon, makaapekto na sa tibuok nga event or tibuok nga situation. Ayan. So for example, terrorism. Ayan. Sabihin natin may mga rebels or mga terrorists who would plan to attack a certain place. Ayan. So asan dun ang pwedeng maging crisis? Ayan. Is it yung mismong pag-atake nila? Is it yung mismong pag-occupy nila ng mga bahay ng mga civilians? As we all know, emergency yan in general. Ang tibuok nga event is a national emergency. Once na ay mga rebels or terrorista na mag-take over sa isa ka lugar. But it would have a crisis within it if na ay turning point or importanteng event. For example, ang mga terorista na take over nila or na overpower nila ang kapulisan o kasundaluhan, na take over nila ang city hall, for example, or municipal hall. O kanang mismong kanang munisipyo sa isa ka lugar. And then imbis na flag sa Philippines ang nasa taas, flag sa mga terrorists. So that itself is a crisis in its whole duration. Ayan. Ano yan? Yun. Anyway, back to the term crisis. Yan. When we say crisis kasi, yung kagaya sa example ko, kung na ay isa ka grupo against the government, as what you would be seeing on that picture, 'di ba? Marawi siege. Kung ang mga rebels or terrorists mag-take over sa mismong city hall, which is the clearest example of government authority sa isa ka lugar, yan yung magsisilbing turning point sa buong event, sa buong situation, which itself would be the crisis. Yung pag-take over ng mismong mga rebels. Okay? So, yun. Yun yung term na crisis. Ayan. Based sa modules po ninyo, a crisis can be created or can create different and interrelated threats. Yan, which would affect public safety, financial loss, and reputation or yung loss of moral ng mga tao. Yan. Best example niyan, Marawi siege o yung mga incidents involving terrorists. Yan. Again, if there is an attack by the enemies of the state, yan, the government, in order to preserve peace and order at para mapreserba po ang gobyerno, magde-declare na og national emergency. Yan, or emergency. Because in order for public safety to be upheld at manatili, kailangan nila gumawa ng measures para mapreserba ang mga innocent civilians, ma-preserve ang mga ari-arian, and to preserve the nation. Yan. Next, financial loss. Makita na ninyo dira, kung magyera na adyoy kwarta na involved. That's very much a common knowledge. Yan. Common and judicial knowledge, in fact. Nga naman, kung magyera, of course, yung mga soldiers may sweldo. Meron silang tinatawag na combat or hazard pay. Tumataas yan or nadadagdagan yan every time they would go into combat. Yan. Kanang mga bala di ay, mga pampakaon sa ilaha, mga equipment nila pang maintain. It costs money for the government. Yan. Yung mga plano na para sana sa ibang facet ng gobyerno, na dadivert papunta sa military at sa law enforcement. Of course, to preserve the nation. And at the same time, sa mga tao or sa society in general, kung naigera, kinsabay mamaligya paghihapon, ana. For example, nagkaroon ng malawakang disaster. Sabihin natin, nagkaroon ng malaking bagyo or mapinsalang bagyo. Naaba mo'y makitaan nga Jollibee na branch na mag-serve gihapon? Bisag kabalo sila na sila'y atop. You wouldn't see any business left, especially pag malawakan ng damage. So there will be financial loss sa mga negosyante, sa mga tao na mupalitay, and at the same time, na ay financial loss to the government. Nga naman, unsaon ba sa tao pag bayad sa ilang mga tax, sa ilang mga duties, kung wala na sila'y kwarta, kung wala na sila'y trabaho, tungod sa isa ka crisis or an emergency. Diba? So it really affects everything. It affects everyone as well. Gobyerno, pribado, individual, or grupo. It creates different facets, different related threats. And then sa last one, yung nakikita nyo dyan, reputation loss. For example, nagkaroon ng crisis, di ba? Marawi siege. Initially, nagkaroon ng reputation loss sa military atong kasundaluhan. Nganong nay nakaikyas, nay nakapenetrate ng mga high value targets o nag-spread og terrorism sa isa ka city. Yan. Low moral ang mga sundalo. Low moral ang pulis. Low moral ang ilahang gobyerno or ang ilahang city government. So it would also affect the people as well. Again, the reflection of a sustainable community is the authority and of course, yung pamumuhay ng tao. Yung capability sa isa ka local government na mag-operate, the same time, ang paglago sa kabuhayan sa mga tao. That is a reflection of a community. Kung damage ang duha, of course, little to none ang reputation na matira. Wala, jud. So it's very important that in planning against crisis or in planning to mitigate or manage disasters and emergencies, they must take into consideration itong tinatawag na mga threats that would be estimated. Ayan. So some crises, especially others, yung na-explain ko sa recorded video, di ba? Meron tayong dalawang threats, di ba? Meron tayong man-made, meron tayong natural emergencies or natural crisis. Ayan. Both of those would create financial and reputation loss. Both of those are threats to public safety. And ang trabaho sa law enforcement, ang trabaho sa military, ang trabaho sa government is for those three interrelated threats to be minimized or prevented. Ayan. Makita nato sa Marawi siege that it is very important na may lakas at capability ang ating kasundaluhan at kapulisan. Kaya kung wala sila, walay negosyo. walay eskwelahan, walay kinabuhi na makasustain. And of course, guba-guba ang mga properties. That's what you have seen. Ayan. So it's very important that our capability sa arms, ang capability natin for enforcing the law. In order to prevent or repel crisis, kailangan highly trained, highly qualified, better equipped ang ating mga puwersa. Yung ating tropa. Okay? So that's very important in crisis. Na kay crisis management plan pero walay mag-implement or walay capable mag-implement. That is very dangerous. Okay? So, let's proceed. Dire, natay essential elements of crisis management. Yan. I think that's very small. Yan. 10 elements. First, risk analysis. Yan. Especially sa mga classmates ninyo, mga students na naa sa mga areas na naay high tendency na maigo sa bagyo. Like for example, Surigao del Sur, Oriental, Agusan del Sur, yan, Surigao del Norte. It is very important na bago mangyari yung isang emergency or isang crisis, the necessary authorities, the necessary agencies of government must have this risk analysis. Ayan. Kasi pasabot sa risk analysis, they would simulate if na ay bagyo or na ay perceived threat na muigo sa isa ka lugar, unsa ba'y mahitabo and unsa ba ang pwedeng courses of action sa mga responding agencies. Ayan. A study of the most likely crisis that you will face and kung ano ang magiging epekto nila. Ayan. For example, Davao City. Ayan. Risk analysis. Ano bang mga common na crisis or emergency na pwedeng mangyari sa atin anytime? Ayan. Natural or man-made. Example, pwede magbaha or kanang massive flooding sa city. Yan. That's a risk. 'Di ba? Mahasol ang mga tao makauli, makaadtog trabaho or even sa ilang mga sakyanan sa mga negosyo. Kana. Or for example, sa mga areas na nasa bukid, the biggest risk in your places, especially kung muulan or mubagyo, is not really tong kakusgon sa ulan or ang hangin. It's not that. Ang pinakadako na risk, especially sa mga mountainous areas, is landslide. Yan, or mudslide. That is actually the most likely crisis or emergency that would occur in those places. So, kailangan malaman ng local government unit through their disaster management councils kung ano ang pwedeng mangyari sa kanilang lugar at kung sino ang magre-respond. Police lang ba? Bureau of Fire lang ba? Mga local rescuers lang ba nila? Ilan ba sila? Kailangan malaman yan. Okay, next. Number 2, activation protocol. Kabalo ko na tanan mo, of course, you have experienced certain kinds of crisis, especially yung mga natural disasters. Kana. Unsa ba ang mga pamaagi sa inyong mga lugar para mahipahibalo na ay bagyo, incoming na bagyo, or na ay mga crisis na muabot sa inyong lugar? Anyone?
Assembly meeting, sir.
Come again?
Assembly meeting.
Pero Nalalaman ba yan ng buong lugar kung mag-meeting ang mga authorities?
Yes, sir. Pina-announcement
Oh,
by
okay.
Purok Leader.
So, yung announcement na yun mismo, yun yung activation protocol, hindi yung meeting. Okay? Yung meeting na yan, authorities lang may alam niyan. Di na kinahanglan na mahibawaan sa public. Because, ipahibalo na gikan sa mga authorities or sa otoridad, padulong sa mga lumulupyo, sa mga constituents, di ba? For example, sa mga coastal areas, na yung mga warning sirens in case na mutaas ang level sa tubig or na ay kusog na hangin. That is an activation protocol. Part yan siya ng warning or early warning system sa isa ka lugar. Kana. So that is very important to know if meron bang early warning devices or system na in place sa isang lugar. Yan. So kung wala, then sa second element pa lang, kulang na. And it needs to be addressed. Yan. Next, itong number 3. Chain of command. Lines of authority for crisis management. For example, bumabagyo na sa lugar ninyo. Na, ingno na to, signal number 2. Yan. Paano ba i-distribute ng authorities ang information galing sa national papunta sa local level? Ano yung chain of command? Yan. That is the flow of communication, the line of authority. Sino yung nasa command authority? Yan. So, for example, galing sa national level, down to the regional level, down to the provincial level, down to the municipal or city level, and then, mubaba na hangtod barangay level, and then purok level, and then bawat pamilya. Yan yung tinatawag na chain of command ng information. Ayan. I will show you something. Yan. It's an organizational chart actually. This is based sa organizational chart ng kapulisan. Okay? You can just stand by for a while. Let me just present this some picture. Okay, so as what you have seen there, that is an example of an organizational chart. Actually, yan yung best example sa atin about the chain of command. Ayan. So for example, sa CIDG, ayan. That is actually the organizational chart ng CIDG. Okay? So, sabihin natin nang galing yung orders galing sa Chief PNP. Ibababa niya sa mga deputies niya, ibababa sa Chief ng Directorial Staff, and then sa bawat operational unit such as CIDG. So, sabihin natin na receive na ng highest ranking officer sa kanilang hanay, which is the director. Ayan. So, yung director, siya na yung may hawak ng impormasyon na nagsasabi may impending threat from a certain organized criminal group or a certain threat from terrorists. At kinailangan yung expertise ng CIDG. So, from him, i-relay niya pababa. That's professionally called as cascading the information down to the subordinates, which is yung dalawa niyang deputies. Director for Administration, which is administrative matters lang yan. O yung tinatawag na housekeeping functions. Pasweldo, benefits, equipment, maintenance. Yan yung trabaho ng Director for Administration. Kung sa operations naman, well, that is the operational side of their mandate. Ilang tao ang deployed? Ilan ba ang active personnel sa kanilang unit? Ayan. Asan ba nakaposisyon yung kanilang mga different unit sa buong bansa? Ayan. Trabaho yan ng Deputy Director for Operations. And of course, yung nagsisilbing parang secretary ng director is the Chief of Staff ng kanilang unit. Ayan. That's common for PNP units. Same goes with BFP, with rescue groups, and other organizations na may public safety na mandate. Yan. And of course, yung secretary, yung chief of staff, ibababa niya yan sa mga different units or subunits sa kanilang hanay. Each of them would be receiving the information which was coming from the director. Ayan. Same goes in crisis management. Kailangan ang isang organization may organizational structure na lahat ng miyembro alam kung saan sila napapabilang at kung sino yung mga related units. Sino yung mga involved sa kanilang organization. Yan. That's the reason why may organizational chart sa bawat organization. So that the employees or those subordinates would know saan sila magre-report. Diyan na napupunta yung tinatawag na span of control, pati yung unity of command. Okay? When we say unity of command, yan. Yung mga subordinates, alam nila kung saan sila magre-report. Alam nila sino yung supervisor nila. Sino yung boss nila. When we say span of control, alam ng supervisor or ng hepe kung ilan yung tao niya at hanggang saan lang yung kanyang authority. Okay? Same goes in crisis management. Kung naay landslide, kinsa ba ang magresponde? Is it ang LGU na mga rescuers or ang Bureau of Fire? Anyone would like to share their answer? Again, kung naay landslide or naay mga natural disasters, sino bang unang magre-respond? Ang local government ba? At yung kanilang mga rescuers or ang Bureau of Fire? Sino ba? Sino bang willing mag-answer? Yes, Mr. Makamay?
Local government sir, like tong city CDRMC, tama ba po?
Nga naman. Nga nung ang LGU man ang mauna.
Opo, kay mo man na ilang responsible sir for the safety na kinsa namuyo sa isa ka community po.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Any other student? Thank you, Mr. Makamay. Nakay recitation points ato. Any other student who would like to answer? Uy, wala. So, sige. Ako na lang yung mamili. Nakibase ng ubandera, nag-siesta ba, natulog ba niya? Gion lang. Na. Ayun. Miss Chu, can you please turn on your microphone?
Um, For me, sir, the responsible for responding in times of sir, disaster like landslide. For me, sir, um, correct si Makamay, sir, which is the Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council, or known as MDRRMC, sir, since they are responsible, sir, for for steadfast in providing safety for especially in far-flung areas, sir. Because sir, sila tong nakabalo, sir, if that area unsa nga sir, kind of action na ilahang unsa na specific or unsa na oh my god, unsa na sir, specific na specific na solution na specific na solution, sir, for that certain area.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sige. Okay lang. Ayaw mo karatol. Di man ko mamaak. Good. Sige. Thank you, Miss Chu. Sige. Actually, may point talaga yung mga sagot nilang dalawa. Tama yung point ni Miss Chu na katong mga rescuers na gikan sa LGU. Siya man dyan nakahibaloon sa terrain sa ilahang lugar. Kaya taga dito man sila, obviously. Pero what if yung LGU, which in reality, mas kulang og equipment kaysa sa BFP? Yes, kabalo sila sa terrain. Kabalo sila na ay emergency or crisis. But how they respond to it if kulang yung equipment or yung personnel? So that's the time that they would call for the assistance of other organizations or agencies na capable. Like for example, ang BFP. Ang Bureau of Fireman Good, if you can still remember sa inyong 213, yan, if na-discuss ba to? Ang Bureau of Fireman Good, even sa arson ninyo na subject, wala siguro na highlight ang mandate sa BFP. Naasa logo nila ang mandate nila to save lives and properties. Hindi sinabi na para sa sunog lang, ha? They're also capable of rescuing people. They're also capable of medicating people padulong sa hospital. So, if the LGU could not have the necessary equipment, pwede silang tumulong. Yan. Pero in reality, I know, kitaan man na ninyo, na nadyo'y mga local governments na kulang jud sa crisis response. Yes, they have a municipal or provincial disaster management council, pero unsaon ng plano kung wala mo'y ma-implement o walay makitaan ang tao na mga equipment na, 'di ba? MDRMC unya bisan ilang ambulansya puros guba. How will they respond to those emergencies? How will they respond to those calls for help? Unsa puro na lang plano, 'di ba? Puro na lang management. Ayan. Ang gusto ng tao, merong tutulong. Gusto ng tao may makikita silang tulong. So that is part of crisis management. It's not just the plans, but it's actually affecting a real solution. Ayan. Okay, so I'll go back to the module. Ayan. Command center plan, number 4 tayo. So, basically, you need a headquarters. Yan. Kung saan sa headquarters, nandyan na lahat ng trabaho ninyo. Nag-base. Communications, pagbababa ng mga orders. Yan. Dili itong order sa JNT, ha? Lahi po na. Sige ra mo Shopee, sige ra mo Lazada. Yan. So, yung orders galing sa mga higher authorities, lahat ng yan dadaan sa command center. Itong Tungod kay ang command dira magsugod sa command center, a base of operations. Yan. If you would soon become law enforcers or even mga uniform personnel, you would always have a place kung saan kayo babalik at doon kayo magsastay, which is actually your base, di ba? So there must be a command center that would be activated. Sa mga munisipyo or mga smaller provinces and municipalities, mauna ang city hall ninyo. Yung city hall ninyo, sa loob niyan merong MDRRMC or CDRRMO. Yan. Diyan yung opisina. Yan yung magsisilbing command center. Maklaro man na ninyo kung command center na kung daghang radyo niya na ay dakong whiteboard. Mauna. It's very important. Para maibawan sa tanan ng mga rescuers or involved personnel, pati na pod sa administration na kung unsa ang threat na incoming and kung unsa ang allocation sa mga personnel. Puntahe, Bureau of Fire Protection. Sa isa ka fire station, of course, na ay station chief, na ay mga administrative and operational personnel, na ay mga fire trucks. For example, sa isa ka shift, which is, let's say, 12 hours na shift, pila ka fire trucks ang ready to deploy anytime. Kinahanglan nakamarka na sa command center para mahibawan sa commanding authority. Sunod, ilang personnel ang ide-deploy or naka-deploy at that shift? Yan. Ilan ba sila? Pila ka bumbero ba na? Yan. Same goes with the municipal disaster office or the city disaster office. Kailangan may counting or accounting of personnel kung ilan ba ang nagtatrabaho at that shift. Next, response action plans. Yan yung tinatawag na, it's actually the tactics side. Specific courses of action. Okay? Sa crisis management, hindi pwede na yung plano mo na ginawa, may command center ka na, pero wala kayong specific na delegation of duties. Yan. Very important yung response action plans. They are detailed, which means they are tactical in nature. For example, during hostage situations, ano ba ang trabaho ng SWAT? Ano sa trabaho nila kung naa sila involved sa hostage taking scenario? Saba, patyon ba nila ang hostage taker? Magpasikat na pud na sila, magtambling-tambling na pud na sila. Saba na, ila bang i-allow ang media na magka-coverage sa hostage scenario?
Mag-negotiate sa sila una, sir.
Actually, the SWAT team does not involve themselves sa negotiating. Kasi merong hostage negotiation team. Yan. The SWAT team members are tactical in nature. Ibig sabihin, reactive sila. They are responders during hostage situations. Kung sa crisis naman or mga disasters, yan. For example, sa mga munisipyo ninyo or even sa city, na yung mga ambulansya, each one has a designated personnel na may specific na trabaho. Sa ambulansya, may driver, pati radio man. May mga medics, 2 or 3 medics. Yun yung trabaho nila. So, sa response action plans, dapat nakalatag dyan kung ano yung dapat gawin ng bawat responder at kung papaano sila magre-respond. Yan yung tinatawag sa PNP na Rules of Engagement. Kung saan yan ang nagsisilbing guide sa bawat police officer kung ano ang dapat gawin on a certain scenario or a certain crisis. Yan. Okay? So next, internal communications. Information is key. Kaalaman is always kapangyarihan. So, how would the responders communicate with each other and communicate sa headquarters freely and without interruption? So, dapat yung internal communications plan during crisis or during certain situations, dapat clean, dapat continuous, at dapat alam nila kung paano gamitin. Mao ang purpose ng mga police cars na ay mga radyo. Each police car, for example, sa Davao City, naa sila'y mga two-way radios. Ayan. Because yan yung nagsisilbing internal communications nila. Kung saan yung mga outsiders or hindi authorized ay hindi makakagamit. Ayan. It is used specifically during the time that an emergency or crisis would occur. Ayan. And of course, they could share it within their organization. Diba? For example, security guard sa UM na yung mga radyo. Kung ikaw estudyante, hilabtan ba na nimo ilang radyo? Mag-ingon ba ka dito na gusto na ko one piece fried chicken with ano sa ba na spaghetti yun niya na ay lumpiang Shanghai. Sabi, mag-order ba ka sa Jollibee gamit sa two-way radio sa Sikyo? 'Di ba? No. Because first and foremost, you don't have the authority to use it. That's part of internal communications. Only those authorized will be able to use it, and it must be used especially during crisis or emergencies. Number 7, external communications. Especially for government agencies like PNP, like Bureau of Fire. Ayan. Kailangan sabi nila sa publiko kung ano yung mga somehow mga programs nila. Ayan, yung mga long-term programs nila. 'Di ba? Kailangan magkaroon silang external communications to the public para at least man lang mapakinggan yung kanilang side. 'Di ba? For example, I know na some of you does not really like the bold sinas or yung nakaupong PNP chief. Pati sa mga comments niya previously. Yan. But try to dig up, ayan, paano nagkakaroon ng press conference ang PNP? Sa ba na, ang mga reporters, pwede ba sila mo sulod lang pataka sa Camp Crame? No. Merong designated office that would handle external communications to the public, including the media. Yan. Yan yung tinatawag na PR team. Yan. That's a civilian term. That's public relations team. Kung sa kapulisan or sa law enforcement, you call that civil relations. Yan. Or that is part ng community policing. Yan. Police community relations. Kung sa military, that's what they call civil-military operations. Yan yung mga nakikita nyo namang spokesperson. Spokesperson sa sundalo, sa police, Bureau of Fire, city government, provincial government, or even sa mga private organizations na ay dedicated office, which ang trabaho nila is to communicate properly with the media and the public. Sunod, resources. Number 8. Kailangan na yung impormasyon na makakalap, eksakto at timely. Kung sa law enforcement yan or even sa Bureau of Fire or even sa military in general, that's what they termed intelligence. Pero sa crisis management in general, you call that information gathering. Okay? Pag ang information na process na, nagiging intelligence yan. Pero sa civilian, pag ang information na process, it would be verified information ang tawag. So, dapat yung resources, sapat, angkop, at on time. Sunod, dapat ang mga responders, enough ang equipment, modern and sufficient. Diba? For example, Bureau of Fire. Naisunog, of course, you need a fire truck. Pero yung fire truck, 1970s pa. Igo lagi pang ayo every time. Pero ang tibok fire truck, 1970 pa. So, is it a modern and a competent, or actually, is it a qualified equipment? Hindi. Because the resources you have for the fire truck is what they call obsolete. Hindi na magamit. Technically, even naga-function pa na, gadagan pa na, pero if you compare it with others, hinay na. That's why ang atong government, especially the current administration, at least man lang yung kanilang mga binibigay na equipment sa kapulisan, sa jail management, sa Bureau of Fire, pati na sa kasundaluhan, at least man lang modern. At least man lang magagamit for a good amount of time. At dapat yung mga equipment working properly. Diba? Lain pod kayo kung hatagan kag ballpen pero wala na ink. Nagpahuram siya ballpen, wala ink. Dapat yung gagamitin to respond a crisis is working, it's logical, tapos enough at adequate ang equipment. 'Di ba? Marapog karon sa mga nurses. Kulang og PPE, kulang og mga hospital beds to cater new cases. That will be considered as a medical crisis. Dako inyong hospital pero nagkulang mong bed, puno na. Then it just shows na yung number 8, yung resources ninyo short. Or if not, kulang na kulang talaga. And that must be addressed. Okay? Before or even during the crisis. Hindi pwede na after the crisis. Bakit? Marami nang magiging casualty. Ayan. Next, number 9, training. Very important. Pun, pag mapulis mo or mahimo mong law enforcer, sabi, bumbero ba mo, or even mga kawatan, mga terorista. Everybody goes to training. Diba? Police, may basic recruit course. Mga bumbero na ay basic recruit course po. Mga sundalo na ay basic military training. Mga kawatan na ay test run. Diba? Ang mga drug pusher na ay test buy. Or buy bus na di ay. Everybody goes to training. And dapat yung training nyo may training plan. Para ma-practice po sa mga responders kung ano ang gagawin upon a certain situation. Kana. At dapat yung training nyo at least man lang dool sa reality. Dili nang trainingo na ninyo sila na mukha o tae. Ayan. Oo, may logic niyan pero really? O lagi, mukhaon lagi tae pero pag abot sa investigation na side, pag abot sa legal na side, walay nahibalan ang law enforcer. Hindi, anong mangyayari inyong kain-kain nila ng tae? Diba? Is that training sufficient? No, it's not. Kasi ang training hindi lang sa katawan. It's basically the mind. Yan. Hindi pwede ang pulis hanggang sa kutubras kamang-kamang o kauntae lang. They must be also knowledgeable of the law. Kasi law enforcer, hindi ba? And lastly, review. Yan. After a crisis occurs or after na set up na yung necessary command center, pati mga equipment, at na-deploy na yung mga tao, kailangan i-review pa rin from time to time yung crisis management plan. Kasi pag hindi yan na-review, paano pag may crisis na hindi nila expected? Would they be ready? Ayan. Sa law enforcement, hindi problema ang pagiging ready. Or even sa military. There was this saying, it's not being ready to respond, which is a problem. Hindi yung pagiging ready ang problema. It is how you maintain that state of readiness constantly. Kaya kailangan constant ang pag-review sa crisis management plan or yung buong plano nila. Because what if may unanticipated na event? Makaya ba nila mag-respond? Okay, so I think that is all for my discussion. Na-explain naman na sa recorded session, pati there is a module. So, are there any questions, clarifications, suggestions? Na ba? Hello? Na ba? Yes, Mr. Makamay.
About po tong sa ano, sir, katong BFP, gani sir, bali supporting bodies lang po sila, sir, if ever na may mangyaring like disaster or sa like slide, ana, sir.
Actually, sila dapat ang mauna. Kasi sila ang mas may equipment in reality kaysa sa LGU. Sa Davao City, murag patas lang. Yan. Pero sa other cities o sa mga munisipyo, ang mas na ay equipment man gud ang BFP in reality. Ana, kay of course nationally funded. Pero actually kung sino ang mas mabilis na makaka-respond, siya yung mauuna. It's not talaga na LGU jud ana. It's not talaga na BFP lang. If landslide or natural calamities. Yan. Pero pag sunog, kinahanglan jud mauna ang BFP. Mapansin na ninyo, kung may sunog, ang mga volunteers magpaulahin na kay paunhon nila ang BFP kay maon man na ang rules of engagement na dapat BFP ang mauna kay auxiliary lang man good sila. It's just the same. Kung merong rules and regulations na nagsasabi na ito ang mauna, di yun ang susundin. Pero pag wala talagang agreement or rules and regulations, then kung sino yung mas malapit, siya yung unang magre-respond. Okay?
Okay po, sir. Thank you, sir.
Other questions? Marag na pangutana si Buison. You have a question? Miss Buison, do you have a question? Sige, kung wala may question, siguro next meeting, siguro magpa-oral recitation ko. Naka-blindfold mo tanan. Siguro before mag-exam. Na, i-bird box challenge na mo. Okay? So, I'll make an agreement with that next time. Sige, time check. It's 5:28. Ayun, thank you for joining this session. Thank you. Yung iba, if you have questions, please put it in the open forum. I'll try to answer it. Di lang ako naka-answer itong mga previous na days kay ayun, duties are everywhere. So, swerte pa mo, estudyante pa mo. By the time you'll be in the working society, hope that you would be ready. Okay? So, ayun. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. Hope to see you again on the next session. And ayun, that's all for this afternoon. So please read your sims, read your modules, and yung mga videos na share na ako, they are very much related to the topics. Ayan. And ayun, that's all. So once again, thank you. Good afternoon. Stay safe. And mabuhay kayo kung kailan nyo gusto.
God
Salamat,
bless,
sir.
sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.